Hey, Assalamu alaikum. In today's video, I want to talk more specifically about homeschooling. I have two main objectives for this video. The first is to explain to you the journey that I took in considering whether or not to homeschool my children. And then the second objective is to point you in the direction of how you can take that journey for yourself. I'm going to be very specific about the resources that I use, that I loved, that I would recommend for anyone to look into. This video might be a bit long, so I will break it up into sections and put slides so that you can focus on the parts that that apply more to you and your family. Okay, so just to start, I know that right now a lot of my followers are based in Nigeria, and while homeschooling might seem kind of new in Nigeria, the reality is that homeschool has been around for decades and decades and decades all across the world. So I am in no way like pioneering homeschooling, and I need to give credit where credit is due. There were so many resources that I studied for months before even starting homeschooling. But today I want to focus on my top 4 favorite resources that these are like the cream of the crop for me, the things that really made the strongest impact in my decision to consider homeschooling my children. So let's just jump right in. Okay, so the first resource that I want to talk about is the Wild and Free podcast. Growing up, I used to see homeschooling families, but I'm not gonna lie, like I thought it was kind of weird that it's like for different types of families and it's like abnormal. I talked about that in a different post. But when I came across this podcast, I started to see homeschooling in a completely different light. If I had to use one word to describe this podcast, it would be the word beautiful. Like it is so beautiful to listen to these podcasts, to hear the stories. It's so wholesome, it's so rich. In each episode, you hear from homeschooling moms. Some of them have been homeschooling for a short amount of time. Others have been homeschooling for like 20 years, and they have children that they've graduated and sent to university. You hear their stories, you hear their reasons, their why, their purpose, and it's beyond inspirational. It touched my heart, and it made me see homeschooling in a different type of light. I would highly recommend this podcast to people who, one, think homeschooling is weird, or 2, who don't know if homeschooling is right for them. If you have these misconceptions and you want to see a different perspective on homeschooling, the Wild and Free podcast is absolutely the way to go. So the next thing I want to talk about is like when you go on social media, most of the accounts that you'll find for homeschooling families are typically like white American Christian families. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm very accustomed to being around communities that look very different from me. And I've just learned by growing up in the US that you connect with different types of people, you take what works for you, you leave what doesn't work for you, and you move on. However, that being said, I think there is so much power in diversity and representation, especially when you're about to enter something that you know very little about. For me, that representation came in the form of a YouTube channel called the Falco Family. So the Falco family is an African-American homeschool family based in the US, and her videos have been around for a while, so you can like really see her children grow, but currently they're like late elementary school to beginning of middle school, I believe. And their family prioritizes all of the things that I care about. Faith, storytelling, photography, and you really get to see her journey. She's very honest about her ups and her downs, and when things are working, when she's trying new things, and I just love that ability for her to open up her home, to open up her homeschool and really give us that view. When I started watching her videos, I had my aha moment. I found a family that while we have different faiths, they're Christian, I'm Muslim, the way that she brings all of the things that she prioritizes for her family together was just truly inspirational. And that representation, seeing a family that looks more like me, really gave me to be honest, that confidence to say, you know what, like this is something that could work for my family as well. So please check her out. She has a YouTube channel. She has an Instagram page and lots of resources on her website. I used to even subscribe as a Patreon member to her page. Okay, so while I love both of the resources that I shared, they are Christian families. And at this point in my journey, I knew that because of Wild and Free, because of the Falco family, that I found a homeschool. I found a way of teaching that I wanted to replicate. But of course, I wanted to approach it from an Islamic perspective because my family is Muslim. I swear, like the journey to homeschool, I really feel like it was Allah, like God was just putting these resources in front of me. Because I walked into a bookstore in Nigeria and I was checking out, I was buying books for my daughter, and behind the checkout desk was a shelf with other books. And I happened to just glance up and I saw this book. It still has the sticker on it, but it's called Teaching Children. The author's name is El-Moslimany, I think is how you pronounce it. She runs a school based in Seattle in the US. When I say I devoured this book, like this book touched my heart. It spoke to me. It explained from a very easy to understand perspective how it is that you can think about Islam and early childhood education together. Everything that I believe about teaching young children, everything that I believe about how you can instill Iman in children who are very young, all of that is mentioned in this book. I just felt like this book, it touched my heart. It had me like nodding and agreeing throughout, like as I'm reading the book, I'm taking notes, I'm highlighting. If you see the book, you'll see my highlights and my markings all throughout. It really was the book that explained what I had been feeling. That you don't need to think about Muslim education for young children as two compartmentalized things. By that I mean, it's not like you send your children to normal school and then you send them to Islamic school on the weekend and they're just supposed to like make that connection and everything is supposed to be great. Like that's how I grew up. It works. Like it's the method that I think a lot of families adopt. But for me, I wanted something different. And this book really like solidified that for me. She explains how if you even think about Islam and how Iman is cultivated in people, it's by studying the world around you. And who better to observe and to pay attention to detail and to be like awe-inspired by the world around them than children. For example, if you take something as simple as the honeybee, you can read the Quranic verses about it. You can talk about the miracles of science and how science hasn't explained, how a honeybee is able to fly with wings that are so small. You can talk about pollination. You can talk about geometry. So you can take one topic and approach it from all of these angles, what they call like unit studies in the homeschool world. But you can do so in a way that speaks to a child's heart and mind at the same time. So here you're teaching them facts, and it's not just dry facts that you open up and read in a textbook, but information that helps them understand Islam from a perspective of beauty and not so much like rote memorization or like dry facts. And I love that. Like this book, I cannot overemphasize how like great it was. If you see here, like you'll see my markings, you'll see how I devoured this book. I couldn't put it down, and I highly recommend it. I believe it's on maybe on Amazon you can find it. I'll try to get the link for those interested. And in Nigeria I bought this at Tarbiya bookstore in Abuja. So at this point in my homeschool journey, I knew that I loved, like, homeschool was beautiful. I wanted to do it. I knew that I wanted to do it in an Islamic way, and I wanted it to be this beautiful thing that like cultivates Iman for my children and makes them better understand the world around them in an interesting way. But I had no idea how to like structure that. So a resource was put in front of me that couldn't have come at a better time. So the last resource that I want to speak about is Our Muslim Homeschool. It's there's a YouTube channel, an Instagram page, a podcast called Raising Moms Podcast, and this is a homeschool mom based in the UK, and she does the best job that I've seen so far of explaining to mothers and parents how to really structure a homeschool, how you can get from that point of inspiration to actually, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. My favorite resource from her so far has been the Launch Your Homeschool course. This is a course where it's an online class where she like breaks down for you the steps that you can take to go from like inspiration to actually, okay, I can start my homeschool tomorrow. I can start my homeschool next week. At this point in my journey, I was very inspired, but I didn't actually know how to start. So I took this course, and my favorite parts of the course are the printouts. Like she'll give you these printable worksheets, and the course walks you through like step by step, like what is your vision, what is your purpose for this homeschool, and how you can break that down into like actionable, okay, these are the things that we're going to study, and this is how we're going to do it. These are the resources that we're going to use. I think the name for this course is perfect, like Launch Your Homeschool. Like it really helps you get started. By the time I finished the course, like I just felt not only inspired, but like, you know what, I can do this. Like I have a practical roadmap, I have a plan laid out, and the truth of the matter is that every homeschool is different, and that's okay. But through this course, you're able to think, you know, what values are most important to your family? What homeschool lifestyle, like are you the kind of family that is going to do homeschool on the dining table every day? Are you going to be the kind of family that does mostly field trips and travel? Like what is important to you? What is important to your kids? What is interesting to you as a homeschool mom? What subjects and what ideas do you want to bring to the forefront? And how do you structure that into your plan for the whole year, for beyond that? So I've been homeschooling for exactly a year now, and I'm still revisiting the notes that I took during this class, and it really was a great foundation that I'm now building upon as I progress in the homeschool journey. And the cool thing is that registration for Launch Your Homeschool is opening up on January 31st, I believe. I'll link the page that you can go get more information from. But I cannot overemphasize the importance of this course. Like it is worth the investment completely, 100%. Please, like I believe the course only runs like once or twice a year. So it's January, before the 31st of January. Make that commitment that you're going to sign up for this course. Sign up, go through it. Even if you're not thinking of homeschooling until, say, next year or so, or maybe like your children are still infants, it's never too early. Like I cannot overemphasize the value that course has brought to me in my homeschool. It's so easy to just be on social media looking at, you know, really nice Instagram pages that make homeschooling look so beautiful. That's one thing, and it's great, and I love that there are more and more homeschool families that are sharing their journey. However, it's a very different thing to go from, okay, I'm inspired, I've been liking and saving and commenting on these posts, to actually, how do I start my homeschool? And the Launch Your Homeschool course is the perfect tool for that. There are also podcasts that she has and YouTube videos, so you can subscribe to her channel. She does Facebook Live sessions from time to time. There's a book club. There's so many resources, but the most important one that I would tell you to prioritize focusing on right now is the Launch Your Homeschool online course that's opening for registration on January 31st. So that's it. Thanks so much for listening up to this point, but please, like, don't let it stop here. Even if you don't think homeschooling is for you, start with the Wild and Free podcast. Just listen to the stories, get exposure to how other people prioritize education for their children. And you know, like, I might have just taken up your whole weekend. I hope you didn't have plans. Sit at home, stay in your PJs, stock up on tea and coffee, and just start exposing yourself to these resources. What I did was I would listen to the podcast like on my way to the office. In my free time, I would watch YouTube videos instead of Netflix, and that just kind of got me like into the world of homeschool. And it really was a journey to get to the point where this is what I want to do. Let's make this a reality. So I wish you the best of luck in your journey. And as I think of more resources or as I come across other insightful pieces of information, I'm excited to share them with you. Bye.